The rain fell in heavy sheets over Koi Cemetery, as if the heavens themselves mourned the loss of Chief Emeka Okafor. Under a sea of black umbrellas, hundreds of mourners gathered around the mahogany casket. Politicians, business tycoons, oil magnates, and society elites. Chief Okafor had been one of Nigeria's wealthiest men, a self-made billionaire who'd built an oil and real estate empire from nothing. But only one person truly grieved. Adana Okafor stood at the graveside, her face hidden behind dark sunglasses and a black lace veil, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. At 25, she'd just lost the only person in the world who'd ever truly loved her. Her mother had died giving birth to her, and her father had raised her alone, pouring all his love and wisdom into his only child. "Be strong, my daughter," he'd told her on his deathbed just 3 days ago, his hand gripping hers weakly. "You have everything you need to continue my legacy. Trust no one, not even family." At the time, she hadn't understood the warning in his eyes. Standing behind her, Uncle Obinna, her father's younger brother, placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're here for you, Adana. You're not alone. Family takes care of family." Beside him, his wife Ani Ngozi dabbed at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief, her expensive gold jewelry glinting in the rain. Their 2 adult children, Emeka Jr. and Chidinma, stood nearby scrolling through their phones, looking bored. The priest said the final prayers. The casket was lowered into the earth. Adana's knees buckled, and Uncle Obinna caught her, his grip surprisingly firm. There, he murmured. "Let's get you home." 3 days later, the family gathered in Chief Okafor's study, now Adana's study, for the reading of the will. Barrister Okonkwo, the family lawyer who'd served Chief Okafor for 30 years, sat behind a massive oak desk, a thick envelope in his weather hands. Uncle Obinna and his family sat on one side of the room, their faces masks of appropriate solemnity. But Adana, sitting alone on the opposite side, caught the way Uncle Obinna's eyes kept darting to the envelope, the way Ani Ngozi's fingers drummed impatiently on her designer handbag. "Let's begin," Barrister Okonkwo said, adjusting his reading glasses. He broke the seal and pulled out the documents. The last will and testament of Chief Emeka Okafor. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. "To my beloved daughter, Adana Okafor, I leave the entirety of my estate, including all assets, properties, investments, and business holdings. The total estimated value is $800 million US. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. $800 million. Adana felt the room spin. She'd known her father was wealthy, but she'd never imagined. Uncle Obinna shot to his feet. "What? All of it?" To her, Barrister Okonkwo looked up calmly. "Yes." Chief Okafor was very clear. Adana is the sole beneficiary. There are provisions for charity donations, staff bonuses, but the bulk of the estate, the companies, the properties, the investments, all go to his daughter. "This is ridiculous." Ani Ngozi shrieked. "She's just a girl. What does she know about running businesses? Emeka was my husband's brother, his own blood. Surely some of this should go to family." "Adana is his family," the lawyer said firmly. "His daughter, his only child. This will is ironclad. I prepare it myself." Uncle Obinna's face had gone purple with rage, but he forced a smile. Of course. Adana is family. We're just surprised. It's a lot of responsibility for someone so young." "I'm 25, Uncle," Adana said quietly, finding her voice. "Not a child." "Of course not, my dear." He sat back down, but Adana saw the way his jaw clenched. "We'll help you, naturally, guide you through managing everything." "That won't be necessary," Barrister Okonkwo interrupted. Chief Okafor established a board of trustees to assist Adana until she turns 30. After that, she has full control. The meeting ended shortly after. As Adana walked the lawyer to his car, he pulled her aside. "Your father asked me to give you this privately," he said, handing her a sealed letter. "He wrote it the day before he died. He said you'd know when to open it." That night, alone in her bedroom, the same room she'd grown up in, now feeling too large and empty, Adana opened her father's letter with shaking hands. "My dearest Adana, If you're reading this, I am gone. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer, but my heart has been failing for months. The doctors gave me 6 months. I managed 8. I need you to be careful. Very careful. Money changes people, and $800 million will turn even family into enemies. I've seen the way Obinna looks at my wealth, the way his wife counts what she thinks should be hers. I've written this will protect you, but a will is just paper. Trust Barrister Okonkwo. Trust yourself. Trust no one else. And remember, you are stronger than you know. With all my love, Papa. Adana read the letter 3 times, her father's words echoing in her mind. Trust no one else. She went to bed that night with the letter under her pillow, not knowing it would be the last night she'd sleep peacefully in her own bed for 15 years. The next morning, Uncle Obinna and his family arrived for breakfast, something they'd never done before. Ani Ngozi had brought fresh pepper soup. You need to eat, dear, she insisted, ladling a generous portion into Adana's bowl. You've barely eaten since your father passed. You need your strength. The soup was delicious, rich with spices and tender meat. Adana ate gratefully, not noticing the look that passed between Uncle Obinna and his wife, not seeing Ani Ngozi's satisfied smile, not knowing that her nightmare was just beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, Uncle Obinna's family visited every day, always bringing food, soups, stews, rice dishes, desserts, always insisting Adana eat, always watching to make sure she finished every bite. And slowly, Adana began to feel strange. Can you imagine your own family drugging you to steal your inheritance? This is absolutely diabolical. If you're as shocked as I am, smash that like button and subscribe to Africantales by Zion right now. Drop a comment. Would you trust your family with a huge inheritance, or would you protect yourself first? Next chapter shows how they destroy her life and lock her away. And trust me, it gets so much worse. Turn on those notifications because you cannot miss what happens next. It started with the headaches. Adana would wake up feeling like her skull was being split open, her vision blurry and unfocused. Then came the dizziness. Standing up too fast would send the room spinning wildly, forcing her to grab onto furniture to keep from falling. You're just stressed, dear, Ani Ngozi said, helping her to the couch one morning when Adana collapsed in the hallway. Grief does terrible things to the body. Here, drink this tea. It'll help. Adana drank the tea. The headache got worse. By the end of the 2nd week, stranger symptoms appeared. Adana would lose hours of time, blinking and suddenly finding herself in a different room with no memory of how she got there. She'd hear voices, her father's voice calling her name, whispers from empty corners of the house. Papa? She'd call out, wandering the mansion at 3 a.m. in her nightgown, searching for a ghost. The staff began to whisper. The maids exchanged worried glances. Even Barrister Okonkwo, when he came to check on her, looked concerned. Adana, are you feeling all right? You seem unwell. I'm fine, she insisted, even though her hands were shaking so badly she spilled her tea. Just tired. But she wasn't fine, and it was getting worse. 3 weeks after her father's funeral, Adana had her first violent episode. She was having lunch with Uncle Obinna and his family. They'd basically moved into mansion by this point, claiming they were taking care of her, when suddenly the room started spinning. The walls began to melt like wax. Uncle Obinna's face stretched and distorted, becoming monstrous. Get away from me, Adana screamed, stumbling backward. You're not real. None of this is real. She grabbed a crystal vase from the side table and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall, missing Emeka Jr.'s head by inches. Adana! Uncle Obinna shouted, grabbing her arms. Calm down. What's wrong with you? Don't touch me. She fought against him, thrashing wildly. You're trying to kill me. You're all trying to kill me. It took 3 security guards to restrain her. When the episode finally passed an hour later, Adana found herself locked in her bedroom, with no memory of what had happened, just the terrified faces of her staff and the broken vase glittering on the floor. I'm calling a doctor, Uncle Obinna announced from outside her door. This isn't normal. She needs help. Dr. Chukwu arrived the next morning, a thin man with cold eyes and an expensive suit. He examined Adana in her bedroom, while Uncle Obinna watched from the doorway. "How long have you been experiencing these symptoms?" Dr. Chukwu asked. "I don't know," Adana whispered. Her mouth felt like it was full of cotton. "A few weeks? Since my father died. And the hallucinations? The violent outbursts. I don't remember them. People tell me they happened, but I don't remember." Dr. Chukwu made notes on his clipboard, nodding gravely. "I see. And your father, did he have any history of mental illness?" "No. My father was perfectly sane. Mental illness can skip generations," the doctor said, "and severe grief can trigger latent conditions." He stood up, closing his notebook. "Mr. Okafor, could I speak with you privately?" Uncle Obinna and the doctor stepped into the hallway. Through a closed door, Adana could hear their muffled voices but couldn't make out the words. When they returned, Uncle Obinna's face was grave with theatrical concern. "Adana, Dr. Chukwu thinks you need more intensive care. Somewhere you can be monitored, helped." "I'm fine here," Adana said. "I just need rest." "You threw a vase at my son," Uncle Obinna said gently. "You could have killed him. What if next time you hurt someone? Or hurt yourself?" "I would never." "You don't remember doing it," Dr. Chukwu interrupted. "That's part of the problem. Ms. Okafor, I'm recommending immediate psychiatric evaluation and possible commitment to a treatment facility." The word commitment sent ice through Adana's veins. "No, absolutely not. I'm not going anywhere." "It's not optional," Uncle Obinna said, his voice hardening. "As your closest living relative, I can make this decision for you, especially since you're clearly not capable of making rational choices right now." "You can't do that. I'm an adult. The inheritance." "The inheritance is exactly why we need to do this," Uncle Obinna said smoothly. "You're in charge of $800 million. Adana, companies, properties, thousands of employees depending on those businesses. Can you honestly tell me you're in any condition to manage that? Can you promise me you won't have another violent episode and make a decision that destroys everything your father built?" Adana wanted to argue, but even she could feel that something was terribly wrong with her. The room wouldn't stop spinning. She couldn't remember yesterday clearly. Maybe she did need help. Just for a little while, Uncle Obinna said softly, "Until you're better. Then you can come home and take control of everything. I promise." The lie sounded so sincere. 2 days later, Judge Afolabi, a man Uncle Obinna had gone to university with, a man whose campaign Uncle Obinna had funded, signed the commitment papers. Dr. Chukwu provided the medical evaluation. Patient exhibits signs of severe psychosis, hallucinations, violent tendencies, and is a danger to herself and others. Immediate psychiatric hospitalization recommended. Adana was in her bedroom, finally having a clear-headed moment, when they came for her. For men in white uniforms. A nurse with a syringe. Uncle Obinna with papers in his hand and crocodile tears in his eyes. "No," Adana whispered, backing away. "No, please. I'm not crazy. I'm not." "It's for your own good," Uncle Obinna said. "I'm so sorry, Adana, but we have no choice." She tried to run. They caught her in the hallway. She screamed for help, for the staff, for anyone, but no one came. The needle bit into her arm, and the world went fuzzy. The last thing she saw as they carried her out of her father's mansion was Auntie Ngozi standing in the foyer, no longer pretending to cry, just smiling. Adana woke up in hell. Sunny Hills Psychiatric Hospital sat on the outskirts of Lagos, surrounded by high walls topped with barbed wire. Inside, the walls were stained and peeling, the floors cracked, the air thick with the smell of disinfectant failing to mask worse odors beneath. Her room, they called it a room, but it was a cell, had bars on the window, a thin mattress on a metal frame, and a toilet in the corner with no privacy. The door locked from the outside with a heavy bolt. A nurse came in that first day, a hard-faced woman with dead eyes, and gave Adana a cup full of pills. "Take them," the woman ordered. "What are they? Does it matter?" "Take them," or we'll hold you down and inject them. Your choice. Adana took the pills. Within an hour, she couldn't think straight, couldn't form full sentences, could barely remember her own name, and this became her life. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. Heavy medication kept her in a fog, unable to fight back, barely able to remember why she was there or who she'd been before. Other patients screamed at night. Orderlies were rough, sometimes cruel. The food was tasteless slop. And every month, Uncle Obinna would visit. He'd sit across from her in the visiting room, shaking his head sadly. Still no improvement. The doctors say, "It's so tragic. Don't worry. I'm taking good care of everything while you're sick. The companies, the properties, all of it. When you're better, it'll all be waiting for you." Through the medication fog, Adana tried to speak, to tell him she knew what he'd done. But her tongue wouldn't cooperate, and the words came out slurred and nonsensical. "Rest now," Uncle Obinna would say, standing to leave. "Get better." He never intended for her to get better. He'd paid Dr. Chukwu handsomely to keep her diagnosed as dangerously psychotic, paid Judge Afolabi to rubber stamp any extension of her commitment, paid the hospital administrator to keep her drugged and compliant. Outside those walls, Uncle Obinna moved into Chief Okafor's mansion with his family. He took over Okafor Industries as temporary CEO. He sold off properties, embezzled funds, ran the businesses into ground while funneling money into his own accounts. And Adana rotted in Sunny Hills, forgotten by the world. Or so he thought. They actually locked her in a mental institution and stole everything. Her own family. If this is breaking your heart, like this video and subscribe to Africantales by Zion. Comment below. Have you ever been betrayed by family? How did you handle it? Share this video with someone who loves powerful revenge stories. Next chapter reveals her 15 years of hell in that place. But she's planning something. Hit that notification bell, because her revenge is going to be epic. The first year was the hardest. Adana spent those 12 months in a medication-induced haze, unable to distinguish reality from hallucination day from night. She'd lost so much weight her bones showed through her hospital gown. Her beautiful hair, which she'd once kept long and carefully styled, was now chopped short and neglected. She barely recognized herself in the scratched metal mirror bolted to her cell wall. Other patients came and went, some genuinely ill, others like her, inconvenient relatives whose families wanted them disappeared. Most didn't last long. They'd either improve enough to be released or deteriorate until they were transferred to even worse facilities. But Adana remained, trapped, forgotten, until Sister Maria arrived. It was during Adana's second year at Sunny Hills that the new nurse was assigned to her ward. Sister Maria was in her 50s, a stout woman with kind eyes and gentle hands who'd spent 20 years working in psychiatric care. Unlike the other staff, who saw patients as problems to be managed, Sister Maria saw human beings. "Good morning, Adana," she said on her first day, actually using Adana's name instead of calling her the patient in 23B. "I'm Sister Maria. I'll be looking after you from now on." Through the medication fog, Adana tried to focus on the woman's face, tried to speak. "I don't belong here." "Sure, don't strain yourself." Sister Maria checked Adana's chart, her brow furrowing. "That's quite a medication cocktail they have you on. Heavy stuff." Over the following weeks, Sister Maria paid attention in ways the other nurses never had. She noticed that Adana's hands trembled not from illness, but from over-medication. She noticed that when the medication doses were lighter, Adana was more coherent, more present, more clearly not psychotic. One night, 6 months after Sister Maria's arrival, she did something that would change everything. She gave Adana the wrong pills. Not the heavy sedatives and antipsychotics that kept her docile and confused. Just a mild sedative. Barely anything at all. By morning, for the first time in over 2 years, Adana's mind was clear. She sat up in her cot, blinking in the dim light filtering through the barred window. She could think, actually think, form complete thoughts. Remember who she was, why she was here, what had been done to her. "Oh, God," she whispered, the full horror of her situation crashing over her. "Oh, God, what had they done to me? When Sister Maria came for morning rounds, Adana grabbed her arm with surprising strength. "Please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "Please, you have to help me. I'm not supposed to be here. My uncle, he drugged me, paid doctors to say I was crazy. He stole my inheritance. Everything my father left me. Please, you have to believe me." Sister Maria could have called security, could have reported this outburst, could have demanded Adana's medication be increased. Instead, she sat down on the edge of the cot and said quietly, "I believe you." Those 3 words were a lifeline. "I've been reviewing your file," Sister Maria continued, her voice low, "and things don't add up. Your admission papers say you're dangerously psychotic, but I've never seen you display actual psychotic symptoms. Confused, yes. Overmedicated, absolutely, but not psychotic. And then there's this." She pulled out a newspaper clipping from her pocket. Adana looked at the photo. Uncle Obinna standing in front of Okafor Industries headquarters, grinning at the camera. The headline read, "Okafor Industries under new management. Obinna Okafor takes helm after niece's tragic mental breakdown." "That's my company," Adana whispered. "My father's company. He left it to me." "I know." Sister Maria folded the clipping away. "I've been doing some research. Your father was Chief Emeka Okafor. You're worth $800 million. Or you were, before your uncle had you committed. He's been stealing everything while I rot in here. Yes, and I'm going to help you stop him." From that day forward, Sister Maria became Adana's secret ally. She couldn't stop giving Adana medications entirely. That would raise suspicion, but she reduced them drastically, replacing the heavy antipsychotics with mild sedatives that kept Adana calm enough to pass inspection, but clear-headed enough to plan. And plan they did. "You can't just escape," Sister Maria explained during one of their whispered conversations during night rounds. "Where would you go? Your uncle has probably declared you legally incompetent. He controls your money, your properties, everything. If you just run, he'll find you and drag you back here, probably to somewhere worse." "Then what do I do?" Adana asked desperately. "You get smart. You get strong. You plan. And when the time is right, you don't just escape, you disappear. Completely. You become someone new, someone he can't find or control. And you build yourself back up until you're powerful enough to take him down." It seemed impossible. But what choice did she have? For the next 13 years, Adana played the long game. By day, she pretended to be the drugged, compliant patient they expected. She shuffled through therapy sessions. She took her reduced medications without complaint. She made no trouble, drew no attention. But at night, with Sister Maria's help, she prepared for freedom. Sister Maria smuggled in books, business journals, investment guides, technology magazines, anything that would keep Adana's mind sharp and current with the outside world. Adana read everything, memorizing market trends, learning about new industries, understanding how money moved in the modern economy. Sister Maria also brought newspapers and printed internet articles, keeping Adana updated on what Uncle Obinna was doing with her inheritance. And it was worse than she'd imagined. He'd sold off most of her father's properties at far below market value, probably pocketing the difference. He'd run Okafor Industries nearly into the ground through mismanagement and embezzlement. He'd fired the loyal staff who'd served her father for decades and replaced them with yes-men. He and his family lived like royalty, expensive cars, designer clothes, international vacations, all funded by her stolen money. Meanwhile, his children, Adana's cousins who'd never worked a day in their lives, flaunted their wealth on social media. Chidimma posted photos of shopping sprees in Dubai. Emeka Jr. posed with different luxury cars every month. Adana memorized every face, every detail, every insult, fuel for fire revenge that burned quietly in her chest. She also used Sister Maria to maintain contact with one person from her old life, Barrister Okonkwo. The elderly lawyer had tried to fight Adana's commitment, but Uncle Obinna's bribe judge had shut him down. Still, he'd never stopped searching for a way to help his old friend's daughter. Through coded letters that Sister Maria smuggled in and out, Adana and the lawyer stayed in touch. He couldn't get her released. Uncle Obena's control was too complete, but he could do something else. He could protect what little remained of her father's legacy that Uncle Obena hadn't yet destroyed. There's a small tech startup, one letter read, that your father invested in years ago. It's grown significantly, but your uncle doesn't know it exists. It was buried in a subsidiary he hasn't bothered to investigate. I've been managing it in trust. It's now worth approximately $20 million. When you're free, it's yours. $20 million. A fraction of what she'd lost, but a start. A foundation. Years passed. Adana's 25th birthday came and went behind bars. Then her 30th. Then her 35th. Uncle Obena's visits became less frequent as the years went on. Why bother? She wasn't going anywhere. The last time he came, on what would have been her father's 70th birthday, he looked older, fatter, satisfied with himself. Still no improvement, I see, he said, not even bothering to sound sad anymore. Such a shame. Your father would have been heartbroken to see you like this. Through her medicated haze, Adana stared at him with eyes that revealed nothing. But inside, she was screaming. Inside, she was planning. You're going to pay, she thought, for every day, every month, every year. I'm going to take back everything you stole, and then I'm going to destroy you on the night of her 40th birthday. 15 years to the day after she'd been committed, Sister Maria came to her cell with more than the usual medicine. She brought street clothes, a wig, fake identification papers, money, and a key. It's time, Sister Maria said simply. Adana looked at the items, then at the woman who'd kept her sane for over a decade. Why are you doing this? You could lose everything. Sister Maria smiled. Because what they did to you is evil. Because I believe in justice. And because I want to see you take back what's yours. She held out the key. There's a supply van that leaves at 5 a.m. I've made arrangements with the driver. He owes me a favor. He'll hide you in the back and take you into Lagos. After that, you're on your own. What about you? They'll know you helped me. I'm retiring next month anyway. And I'll play dumb. I'm just an old nurse who got tricked by a clever patient. She pressed the key into Adana's hand. Go. Disappear. Get strong. Then come back and make them pay. At 4:45 a.m., when the night staff was at their laziest, Adana unlocked her cell door for the first time in 15 years. She walked through the quiet corridors, past other locked doors, past the nurse's station where the night nurse was sleeping. She walked out of Sunny Hill's psychiatric hospital a ghost. And she would return a queen. 15 years. Can you imagine being locked up for 15 years while your family spend your money? If you're feeling this injustice, smash that like button and subscribe to Africantales by Zion. Drop a comment. Could you survive 15 years and still plan revenge? What would you do first? Next chapter is where she escapes and starts building her empire, and you won't believe how she does it. Turn on notifications because the comeback is incredible. The supply van dropped Adana at a busy market in Lagos at dawn. She stood on the street corner in her borrowed clothes, a simple dress and headscarf that made her look like any other woman, and breathed free air for the first time in 15 years. The city had changed. Lagos had always been chaotic, but now it was even more so. More cars, more buildings, more people. Technology had leaped forward. Everyone had smartphones now. The streets were filled with okadas weaving through traffic, street vendors hawking their wares, the eternal hustle of Africa's largest city. Adana felt like she'd time-traveled. She had 500,000 naira in cash, money Sister Maria had been saving for years from her salary. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start. She found a cheap hotel in a neighborhood where no one asked questions, paid cash for a room, and locked herself inside. Then she broke down and cried for the first time in 15 years. She cried for her father, for the life stolen from her, for the woman she'd been and the stranger she'd become. She cried until she had nothing left. Then she washed her face, looked at herself in the cracked mirror, and made a decision. Adana Okafor was dead. She died 15 years ago in that psychiatric hospital. Now someone new would be born. Her first call was to barrister Okonkwo. The elderly lawyer nearly had a heart attack when he heard her voice. Adana, is it really you? Where are you? I can't tell you where I am. Not yet, but I need your help. That tech startup you mentioned. Can you transfer ownership to me? Of course, but... No buts. Do it today. And I need you to create a new corporate identity for me. A shell company. Something completely separate from the Okafor name that Uncle Obinna could never trace. There was a long pause. Then, you're going after him. I'm going to destroy him. But first, I need to rebuild myself. Can you help me? Your father was my best friend for 40 years. Helping you honor his legacy would be my greatest joy. Within a week, Barrister Okonkwo had created Ada Empire Holdings, named for Adana's childhood nickname, but legally untraceable to her real identity. The $20 million tech startup was transferred to the new company, and Adana had her foundation. But $20 million wasn't enough. Not nearly enough to take on Uncle Obinna, who controlled hundreds of millions in assets. So Adana did what her father had taught her. She invested smart. She spent 15 years reading about emerging markets and new technologies. She knew that Africa was on the verge of a tech boom. She knew that real estate in certain Lagos neighborhoods was about to explode in value. She knew where the opportunities were. She took her $20 million and went to work. Her first investment was in a struggling mobile payment app. Everyone said mobile money was the future of African finance, but this particular startup was failing. Bad management, worse marketing. Adana bought them out for $3 million, brought in new leadership, and within a year, the app had 5 million users across Nigeria. She sold it for $40 million. Next, she invested in real estate. Not the obvious luxury properties Uncle Obinna was buying, but land in developing areas where new middle-class neighborhoods were being built. Land that cost nothing now, but would be worth fortunes in 5 years. She was right. Those investments quadrupled in value. She invested in a telecommunications company, a logistics startup, a renewable energy project. Everything she touched turned to gold because, unlike Uncle Obinna, who'd been handed wealth without earning it, Adana understood the value of money and the importance of strategic thinking. Her father had trained her well, even if she'd been too young to realize it at the time. But making money was only part of the plan. She also needed to become invisible. Adana changed her appearance completely. She cut her hair into a short, modern style. She wore designer clothes, the uniform of successful businesswomen. She wore subtle makeup and carried herself with confidence. The frightened, broken girl who'd escaped the psychiatric hospital was gone, replaced by a poised, powerful woman. She changed her name legally to Ada Njoku, common enough to be unremarkable, different enough from Okafor that no one would make the connection. And she built a reputation. In business circles, Ada Njoku became known as a brilliant but mysterious investor. She never gave interviews, never appeared at social events, never did anything that might attract too much attention. But everyone knew her company, Ada Empire Holdings, was making waves in the Nigerian business world. 5 years after her escape, Ada Empire Holdings was worth $200 million. 10 years after her escape, it was worth $800 million, the exact amount Uncle Obinna had stolen from her. But Adana didn't stop there. She kept building, kept investing, kept growing her empire, because she didn't just want to match what she'd lost. She wanted to surpass it. She wanted to become so powerful that when she finally revealed herself, Uncle Obinna would realize how completely he'd underestimated her. 15 years after her escape, 30 years after her father's death, Ada Empire Holdings was worth over $2 billion. Adana, now 40 years old, sat in her penthouse office overlooking Lagos and reviewed her assets on her laptop. Real estate across Nigeria, tech companies in Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa, a telecommunications network, a logistics empire, investment portfolios diversified across the continent. She'd done more than survive. She'd thrived. And now, finally, she was ready for the last phase of her plan. Revenge. Barrister Okonkwo, now in his 80s but still sharp as a razor, sat across from her. Okafor Industries is on the verge of collapse, he reported. Your uncle has mismanaged it terribly. They're drowning in debt. The company is valued at barely $100 million now, a fraction of what your father built. Who are the major creditors? Several banks, a few investment firms. He slid a folder across the desk. All listed here. Adana opened the folder and smiled. I own 3 of these creditors already. So I could force them into bankruptcy. But that's not what I want. Her smile turned cold. I want to buy them. I want to own Okafor Industries. I want to walk into that boardroom and watch Uncle Obina's face when he realizes who I am. Barrister Okonkwo's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Your father would be so proud. Then let's make it happen. Over the next 6 months, Ada Empire Holdings quietly bought up Okafor Industries' debt. Every loan, every creditor, every financial obligation. Adana purchased them all through shell companies and intermediaries. Uncle Obina had no idea that the mysterious investor buying his company's debt was a supposedly insane niece. When Ada Empire Holdings owned enough debt to control the company, Adana made her move. She called for a shareholders' meeting. As the majority creditor, she had the legal right. The meeting would be mandatory. All board members, all major shareholders, and most importantly, Uncle Obina himself as CEO. The invitation went out on official letterhead. Ada Empire Holdings cordially invites you to an emergency shareholders meeting to discuss the future of Okafor Industries. Uncle Obina, now 65 and bloated from years of excess, was furious when he received the invitation. Who the hell is Ada Empire Holdings? And who do they think they are calling a meeting about my company? They own most of our debt, sir, his assistant explained nervously. Legally, they have the right. Fine, let them come. I'll tell them exactly what they can do with their debt. On the day of the meeting, Uncle Obina arrived at Okafor Industries headquarters with his usual arrogance. His wife Ani Ngozi was with him, dripping in jewelry purchased with stolen money. Their children, now in their 40s and just as useless as ever, trailed behind, scrolling through their phones. The boardroom was packed. The board of directors Uncle Obina had installed. All his cronies and yes-men sat around a table looking nervous. Several other shareholders and creditors filled the remaining seats. At exactly 10 a.m., the doors opened. A woman walked in wearing a tailored navy blue suit and designer heels, her short natural hair styled elegantly, her face composed and confident. She wore dark sunglasses that hid her eyes. Uncle Obina barely glanced at her. Just another corporate drone. The woman walked to the head of the table, Uncle Obina's seat, and stood there calmly. Excuse me, Uncle Obina snapped. That's my seat. Who are you? The majority shareholder, the woman replied. Her voice was steady, controlled, nothing like the drug mumbling of the broken girl he'd last seen 15 years ago. Majority shareholder? That's ridiculous. I'm the CEO of this company. You control nothing. The woman reached up and slowly removed her sunglasses. The room fell silent. Uncle Obina's face went white. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Ani Ngozi let out a small scream. Chidinma's phone clattered to the table. Hello, Uncle, Adana said, her voice like ice. Did you miss me? Yes. She escaped and became even richer than before. From $800 million to $2 billion. If you're cheering for her right now, like this video and subscribe to Africantales by Zion. Comment below. Do you think her uncle's family deserves what's coming? What should she do to them? Share this with everyone because next chapter is a final showdown. She returns as their boss and revenge is absolutely brutal. Hit that notification bell because you do not want to miss this ending. For several seconds, no one in the boardroom moved. No one breathed. They all stared at the woman at the head of the table as if she were a ghost risen from the grave, which, in a way, she was. No, Uncle Obina finally whispered. No, you're in Sunny Hills. You're sick. You're locked up, drugged, helpless. Adana smiled without warmth. Not anymore. Ani Ngozi found her voice, shrill with panic. This is impossible. We've been paying the hospital. They said you were still there. Oh, they've been very happy to keep taking your money, Adana said, sitting down in what had once been her father's chair, now hers again. Sister Maria made sure the payments kept going to a private account after I left. Thank you for funding my first year of freedom. By the way, very generous of you. Uncle Obina's face had gone from white to purple. You can't be here. You're mentally incompetent, the courts declared. The courts declare me incompetent based on falsified medical reports from Dr. Chukwu, the same Dr. Chukwu who accepted 5 million naira to diagnose me as psychotic, the same Dr. Chukwu who is currently under investigation for medical fraud. Adana opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I have his signed confession, and Judge Afolabi's, and detailed financial records showing every bribe you paid over 15 years. She threw the folder on the table. Papers spilled out, bank statements, wire transfers, signed confessions, all of it. You drugged me, Adana continued, her voice deadly calm. You paid doctors to declare me insane. You locked me in a psychiatric hospital for 15 years while you stole my inheritance and destroyed my father's legacy. Did you really think I'd stay buried forever? Emeka Jr., who'd been silent until now, stood up. You can't prove any of this. Those confessions were probably coerced. No court will. Sit down, cousin. Adana's voice cracked like a whip. You, who've never worked a day in your life, who've lived off my stolen money for 3 decades, who posted photos of your 5th Ferrari on Instagram last week while I was locked in a cell. Sit down. He sat. Adana stood and walked slowly around the table, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Everyone shrank back as she passed. Let me explain something to all of you, she said. For the past 15 years, while you thought I was rotting in a mental hospital, I was planning this moment. Every day, every night, thinking about how I would take back everything you stole and destroy you in the process. She stopped behind Uncle Obina's chair. He flinched but didn't turn around. I didn't just escape, Uncle. I disappeared. I became someone new, someone you could never find or control. And I built an empire. She leaned down, speaking directly into his ear. I built it with the 20 million you didn't know about, the tech startup my father invested in that you were too stupid to discover. I turned 20 million into 2 billion. I am now worth more than you ever dreamed of being. She circled back to the head of the table. And now I own you. Ada Empire Holdings owns 70% of Okafor Industries' debt, which means I own this company. I own this building. I own the chairs you're sitting in. As of this moment, you're all fired. You can't do that. Uncle Obina shouted, finding his voice. The board. The board serves at my pleasure now. Adana looked at the board members, Uncle Obina's cronies, and yes-men who'd helped him loot her father's company. Gentlemen, let me be clear. Every one of you has been complicit in fraud, embezzlement, and mismanagement. I have evidence of every illegal transaction, every bribe, every stolen dollar. You have 2 choices. Resign immediately and cooperate with the investigation, or fight me and spend the next decade in court and probably in prison. She let that sink in. One by one, the board members stood and walked out of the room. They knew when they were beaten. When only Uncle Obina's family remained, Adana sat down again and folded her hands on the table. Now, let's talk about what happens to you. Ani Ngozi was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her face. Please, Adana, we're family. We made a mistake, but... A mistake? Adana's voice could have frozen water. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. A mistake is bouncing a check. What you did was systematically destroy my life for 15 years so you could steal my inheritance. You drugged me. You locked me away. You told the world I was insane while you lived in my father's house and spent my money. We'll give it back. Uncle Obina said desperately, whatever's left, we'll... There's nothing left. Adana pulled out another folder. I've had forensic accountants going through Okafor Industries' books for months. You've stolen or wasted approximately $750 million of my inheritance. The company is worth barely $100 million now. You've destroyed everything my father built. She slid the folder across to him. Those are criminal charges. Fraud, embezzlement, false imprisonment, conspiracy. The police are waiting outside to arrest all 4 of you. No! Chidinma screamed. You can't send us to prison. We're your family. Adana stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Lagos below, the city where she'd grown up, where her father had built his empire, where she'd been betrayed and broken and reborn. You're right, she said quietly. You are my family, the only family I have left. Hope flickered in Uncle Obina's eyes. Adana turned to face them. Which makes what you did so much worse. You weren't strangers who betrayed me for money. You were my father's brother, his sister-in-law, my cousins, and you locked me in hell for 15 years without a second thought. She walked back to the table and pressed the intercom button. Send them in. The doors opened. Four police officers entered, led by a Commissioner Adana had worked with for months to build the case. Commissioner Adelik, these are the suspects. I believe you have warrants. We do, Ms. Okafor. The commissioner pulled out handcuffs. Obina Okafor, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, false imprisonment, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Uncle Obina's family was led away in handcuffs, Ani Ngozi wailing, the children protesting their innocence. Uncle Obina said nothing, just stared at Adana with hatred and something else. Fear. At the door, he turned back. You'll never be happy, he said. All that money, all that power, it won't bring your father back. It won't give you back those 15 years. You'll be alone forever. Adana smiled. Perhaps, but you'll be in prison. I'd rather be alone and free than locked up and helpless. Wouldn't you agree? She let that question hang in the air as they dragged him away. The trial lasted 6 months and was the biggest news story in Nigeria. The media called it the heiress's revenge and the $800 million betrayal. Every day brought new revelations about Uncle Obina's crimes, and every day, Adana sat in the courtroom and watched justice unfold. The verdict came down on what would have been her father's 75th birthday. Uncle Obina, 25 years in prison for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Ani Ngozi, 20 years for conspiracy and accessory to fraud. Emeka Jr. and Chidinma, 15 years each for conspiracy and benefiting from illegal proceeds. Additionally, every asset they'd purchased with stolen money. The cars, the jewelry, the properties was seized and liquidated. The proceeds went toward repaying Adana's inheritance. It wouldn't bring back the full $800 million. Nothing could undo the damage Uncle Obina had done to Okafor Industries. But it was justice. After the verdict, Adana stood on the courthouse steps and faced the cameras for the first time. My father, Chief Emeka Okafor, built his empire from nothing through hard work, integrity, and love for this country, she said. My uncle destroyed that legacy through greed and cruelty. Today, justice was served. But my work isn't finished. I will rebuild Okafor Industries. I will honor my father's memory. And I will make sure that what happened to me never happens to anyone else. She established the Chief Emeka Okafor Foundation, dedicated to reforming Nigeria's mental health system and helping victims of false imprisonment. She funded investigations into corrupt doctors and judges. She made psychiatric patient rights her mission, and she rebuilt Okafor Industries from the ground up. It took 5 years, but she did it. She brought back the loyal employees her uncle had fired. She invested in innovation. She made the company profitable again. And she did all while running Ada Empire Holdings, which continued to grow. By the time she was 45, Adana Okafor was one of the richest and most respected businesswomen in Africa. She never married, never had children. Some people said Uncle Obina was right, that she'd never be truly happy, that revenge had made her cold. But on the 10th anniversary of her return, Adana stood in her father's office, now hers, and looked at his portrait hanging on the wall. I did it, Papa, she whispered. I took back everything they stole. I honored your legacy, and I made sure they paid for what they did. She thought about the scared 25-year-old girl who'd been drugged and locked away, about the broken woman who'd spent 15 years in hell, about the determined survivor who'd rebuilt herself from nothing. She thought about Uncle Obina, now 75 years old, sitting in a prison cell with 15 more years left on his sentence. About Ani Ngozi, who'd aged 20 years in the past 10. About her cousins, who'd finally learned that actions have consequences. And she smiled. Not a cold smile. Not a bitter smile. A satisfied smile. She'd won. She'd survived. She'd thrived. And sometimes that was enough. The end. Justice was served. She came back and destroyed them all. Did you see their faces when they realized who she was? If you love this revenge story, smash that like button and subscribe to Africantales by Zion for more incredible African tales of justice and revenge. Drop a comment. Was her revenge perfect, or should she have done more? Do you think 25 years in prison is enough for what they did to her? Share this video with everyone who loves a good comeback story. We have more amazing stories coming. So hit that notification bell. What story should I tell next? Drop your suggestions. Thank you for watching, and remember, never underestimate someone you've wronged. I'll see you in the next one.